This is Colin O'Keefe for LXPN TV and our affiliate, Texas Bar TV. As part of our advanced coverage of the 2013 State Bar of Texas annual meeting, I'm speaking now with author David Stewart. He'll be speaking in a session titled The Two Most Important Trials in American History. David, give us a bit of a sneak preview, a condensed version, if you will. One of the trials you'll be speaking on is the impeachment trial of President Andrew Johnson. Can you run us through that one and why it was so impactful in American history?
Really two reasons. One is, of course, it was the first presidential impeachment. The impeachment clause incorporates an old English tradition, which the English had given up largely by the time we adopted it. It was very awkward and uncomfortable for people to figure out. Some of the language used in it, like high crimes and misdemeanors, has no analog anywhere else in our law. And what that clause means, how it's interpreted, has been very important. We obviously always come back to it in the Richard Nixon impeachment case, in the Bill Clinton case. We have to go back to the Johnson case. And this is a moment when we look at replacing the president of the United States, reversing the verdict of the voters, and that's huge. The other reason was this was the battlefield for the argument over how are we going to reconstruct the Union? What are we going to do about North and South after the Civil War? It's just 3 years after the war. The terms on which the South will be brought back into the Union are still the subject of bitter dispute, and Johnson's fight with Congress is really the essential guts of the case that was brought against him, and that ultimately failed.
Absolutely. And then second, we have the treason trial of Aaron Burr. What can you tell us about this one? Why was that one so impactful?
Well, there's a bunch of reasons. The biggest, of course, is we had a former vice president of the United States on trial for treason. He could be hanged. Burr did some real firsts for American vice presidents, but nobody has ever faced that kind of jeopardy. And that was a moment of tremendous drama. The entire nation was transfixed by this scene. But it also involved, what did the treason clause in the Constitution mean, which nobody really had understood before. It was a big departure from British law before then. It resolved what the habeas corpus clause means to some extent. It also dealt with executive privilege, presidential privilege, which we deal with all the time now. But in many respects, the most important issue that was resolved was, even though Burr was so controversial, really notorious at that moment in time, he had killed Alexander Hamilton in a duel. He had gone off to create a new nation out west. Chief Justice Marshall presided over this trial and insisted that Burr would be entitled to and would get every legal and constitutional protection that the law provided. It was a gutsy thing for him to do. It's a lesson that Americans need to learn, which is that our legal protections only really count if they count for everybody, even the people we don't like. And for that reason, I think it's a tremendous landmark in our law.
Absolutely. David, I look forward to hearing you dive into each of these two trials in depth at the annual meeting. I'm sure it'll be fascinating. Once again, that was author David Stewart. He is the author of Impeach, the Trial of President Andrew Johnson and the Fight for Lincoln's Legacy. For more of LXPN TV and Texas Bar TV's coverage of the 2013 State Bar of Texas annual meeting, visit lxpn.com and texasbartoday.com. Thanks for joining me today, David.
Thank you.